I'd like to call our meeting to order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Kevin Tansky.
Here.
Sue Brogan. Here. Ron Van Kirk.
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Here.
Andy Selher.
Here.
Kathy Pucci.
Here.
Mary Belfier.
Here.
We do have two hearings this evening, one for the Community Development Block Grant and also another for the Community Development Supplemental Grant. And the mayor will take care of that here momentarily. When you came in, if you did not sign in the paper in the back, if you could please take some time to do that, that will help us with these hearings. So at this time, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. Well, welcome everyone tonight. This initial phase is the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant as well as the Community Development Supplemental Grant. Cuyahoga County receives Community Development Block Grant funding each year directly through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The county makes these funds available to the cities through a competitive grant application program and allows funding requests up to $150,000. The funds enable cities to provide viability by promoting decent housing and suitable living environments while expanding economic development opportunities. The national objective is to benefit low to moderate income persons or to aid in the elimination of blight. Specifically, initiatives eligible include community master plans, infrastructure, streetscapes, community and senior centers, housing and commercial demolition, public safety, parks and playgrounds, and other initiatives outlined by 24 CFR 570. As part of the HUD requirements to qualify for grant funding, cities are required to hold a public session. Notice for the public session was already publicized last week by HUD requirements, and the county recommends grant applications to include comments from residents. So if you're unable to attend this meeting tonight and have comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to my office. You can contact my office directly at 216-635-4220. Email me at kagallagher, GALLAGHER @brooklynohio.gov or mail to us at 7619 Memphis Avenue. In addition to the CDBG funding, the county also has a competitive grant program called the Community Development Supplemental Grant that began in 2017. Those are grants up to $50,000 and will be available to all communities as well as community development corporations within the county that meet certain criteria. Activities that meet the CDBG requirements will be eligible, but they do not need to meet the low, moderate, or slum blight objectives outlined in CDBG. So there's a little bit more flexibility. At this particular time, two initiatives that the city is looking at, but we're not set with, for the CDSG grant, the supplemental grant, we're looking at trying to apply for a grant program for the exterior maintenance program. If you recall, we've done this for the last 2 years. We feel it's been highly successful in our community. It allows us to match those funding and give that funding back to residents in the form of exterior grants up to $3,000. We feel like that's a benefit for not only the residents, but also the community, as well as the county. As far as the Community Development Block Grant, at this time, we are looking at one of our capital needs that will be on our list for next year, which includes the Recreation Center roof. But at this time, I'd welcome any members from the public audience not affiliated with the City of Brooklyn to come up to the podium if they wish and make any kind of suggestions to the administration on the ways that we should be applying for this funding and allocating if granted by the county. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Are there any comments? Right, thank you, Mayor. At this time, then, we'll move on with our council meeting. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Following that, please remain standing for a prayer by Pastor Carl Zer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Lord Jesus, I thank you for this gathering of council members and citizens of Brooklyn. And I ask, Lord, that you would grant them wisdom as they work through the issues that are going to be brought forward this evening. I ask, Lord, that with each person, when they speak, that you would give them clarity and that they would be understood. And I just ask, Lord, that you would bless the city of Brooklyn, bless our mayor, and bless the city council. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please be seated. The first item on our agenda this evening is approval of the minutes dated September 28th, 2020. Any comments or questions regarding that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick. Yes. Roxanne Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Del Dare.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have the public session. If anyone in the audience is in the say for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, and you'll be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer. No one? All right, very good. We'll now move on with reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We'll begin this evening with the Finance Committee. We discussed the following at our 6:15 meeting prior to council. We do have two notifications this evening, the first of which is a donation of 75 $20 gift cards to Giant Eagle, and this is donated by Minutemen HR, and we'll be using those to help those in need this Thanksgiving season, so we thank Minutemen for that. Additionally, there's a $5,000 grant to plant 27 trees for Veterans Memorial Park, and this is to help with the tree loss due to the ash borer that took out quite a few trees a couple of years ago, and this grant is from Keep America Beautiful, and so we're grateful for that $5,000 as well. Up for third reading and adoption this evening is Resolution 2020-5. This is requesting the county fiscal officer to advance taxes from the proceeds of the 2020 tax levies, and this is pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code. This is the annual resolution that we pass every year. It's necessary in order to advance the tax proceeds for the fiscal year 2021. Also up for third reading and adoption this evening is Ordinance 2020-32. This authorizes the mayor to enter an agreement with West Creek Conservancy for the sale of certain real property known as a portion of 8707 Memphis Avenue. And we did have a discussion regarding this. This is a portion of the old Up to Bat property, and this will be sold to West Creek Conservancy potentially if it passes this evening for conservation purposes. Next up is Ordinance 2020-40. This is up for a third reading adoption as well. And this deals with the TIF financing that we've talked about before for the property located off of Tiedemann Road for some infrastructure improvements that were done up there. And again, we've talked about this before as well. All right, next up was Ordinance 2020-42. This authorizes the updated capital improvement plan for 2020. At the last meeting, we discussed the fact that it was an increase of $500 for engineering the feasibility study done for the city center site. And there's been an addition as well, an additional $10,000 in engineering costs for safe routes to school. And as Mr. Raguse pointed out in the committee meeting, this is a not to exceed amount. And we're not exactly sure what that amount is going to be, so this is a cushion for that, so it's a not to exceed additional $10,000. Then under new business this evening was Resolution 2020-9. This authorizes the mayor to enter into a contract with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health for health services for 2021. This is an annual agreement that's required by Ohio Revised Code. The cost for this service is $60,871 and is the same cost as it was last year. And then the last item that we touched on in finance, but more in the committee of the whole, was Ordinance 2020-43, authorizing the mayor to enter into a consultant agreement with Glaus, Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven. That's referred to as the GPD group. I will probably call it GDP at some point. I already did that once tonight, but it's the GPD group. And this is for the consulting for the potential building of a new police station and city hall. And the cost of those services would be $355,000. The Finance Committee does meet prior to each council meeting at 6:15. All are welcome to attend. Excuse me. At this time, we'll now move on with the Recreation Board. Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. Youth basketball is being offered at the Recreation Center for grades 3 to 6. Resident fee $60. Registration is open from October 5th to October 31st. There will be weeknight practice and Saturday games November 2020 through March 2021. Season dates may be adjusted to accommodate for COVID-specific guidelines. Practices and home games to be held at Brooklyn Middle School Fieldhouse. Volunteer coaches will manage teams. Parents will be contacted in November by their assigned coach. Away games to be held at Middlebrook Heights, Brook Park, North Olmsted, North Ridgeville, Columbia Station, Fairview Park, Westlake, Strongsville. If you have any questions about any programs, contact the Rec Center 216-351-5334 or email rcinfo@brooklynohio.gov. Next Recreation Board meeting will be held on October 19th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the Rec Center meeting room. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next up is the Domestic Abuse Commission, Councilman Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. I'm wearing purple tonight because October is Domestic Abuse Awareness Month. This awareness is especially important this year due to the pandemic and the impact it has had on survivors of domestic abuse. The City of Brooklyn is recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We must recognize that the victims and survivors of the unspeakable ordeal of domestic violence deserve our compassion, respect, and support. During the coronavirus pandemic, Ohio and the nation has seen the consequences of increased domestic abuse. We must protect and support those who have found themselves locked down with an abuser. We must do our part to provide domestic violence survivors with the tools and resources they need to escape their abuse and secure justice for the harm inflicted upon them. The Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center in Cleveland is now known as the Journey Center for Safety and Healing, providing the same first-class services as previously. For anybody experiencing abuse at home, whether physical, emotional, financial, or any other form of abuse, please call the Journey Center's hotline at 216-391-4357. That ends my report.
Thank you. Next up, Board of Zoning Appeals, Commissioner Colsar.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. The Board of Zoning Appeals meeting that was scheduled for October 15th has been canceled. No applications were made. The next meeting for the Board of Zoning Appeals will be November 19th. That completes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Planning Commission, Councilwoman Sue Grodick.
Thank you. The Planning Commission met on Wednesday, October 7th, and we approved 3 items. The first was a request for Sade neon signs at 4308 Ridge Road. The second was a request for Agile signs for a sign at 11400 Brook Park Road. And the last request that we approved was from IRG Realty Advisors for final site approval for site work at 1 American Road. Our next Planning Commission meeting will be November 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Sustainability Advisory Committee, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. I would like to give an update on Brooklyn's solar energy. The county, between all of its buildings, used about 60 million kilowatt hours in electricity. Over the last 2 years, the Brooklyn solar facility has produced about 5 million kilowatt hours each year, 10 million total. Brooklyn Solar Project produces 5/60th power needed, or roughly 8.3% of the power needs of the county. The vacant, unusable landfill is actually being very useful for sustainability energy. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Last up this evening is the Committee of the Whole. We dealt with 4 additional items in that meeting over finance. The first of which is Ordinance 2020-35. This is amending sections 1360.21 inspections and 1360.22 right of entry. This deals with, as we talked in the previous meetings, with the Fourth Amendment issue with our building department. It wasn't an issue, it's just an update of our ordinances to make sure we were in compliance with the Fourth Amendment. That's on 3rd reading. We did recommend the council adopt. Next was Ordinance 2020-38, and this is authorizing the mayor to grant a conservation easement to West Creek Conservancy, and this is to do some stabilization and restoration work in Stickney Creek. Then a similar ordinance to that is ordinance 2020-41, which is on second reading. We hope to pass by suspension of the rules. This is the same group, West Creek Conservancy, again, another conservation easement, and this time for preservation in Big Creek. And then the last item we talked about, as I mentioned earlier, was the ordinance 2020-43. That's the consultant with Glaus Pyle, Schomer and Burns. A couple gentlemen were here from that company to start opening conversations regarding the police station and the new city hall. You'll be hearing lots more about that as we move forward. One update that the mayor gave during the committee of the whole meeting was that the Brook Park construction, we talked about that at our last meeting, was slated for 2022. That has been pushed to 2023, which I think will be nice because the Ridge Road construction is for 2022 as well, so that would have been quite a headache to have those at the same time. So that got pushed back by a year. This will also give us some lead time, as the mayor mentioned, to apply for additional funding for that. And then Mr. Raguse gave us the update. We did receive our final, what we believe is our final installment of the COVID relief funds from the state, and that brings our total that we've received thus far to $778,000 to the city of Brooklyn. And that completes my report for Committee of the Whole. We do meet following the Finance Committee meeting right before council meeting on all regularly scheduled council meetings. All are welcome to attend. They take place right here in council chambers. We'll now move on to reports of council. We'll begin this evening with Mr. Tansky.
Thank you. Good evening. At the last council meeting, I mentioned Brooklyn's community cleanup program. I read a post on the city's Facebook that really caught my eye on what residents think of trash being thrown out the windows of vehicles. In part, it states to people, fantastic program. While our taxes go towards some community improvements, the spirit of the community reigns in the hearts of those who volunteer to aid in the beautification of our communities, state, and country. No, to people who litter, the earth is not your ashtray nor your garbage can. There are receptacles available, or keep your butts and garbage until you can dispose of them properly. I thought I would share that post with you. Councilman Andy Selhertz and myself have been removing trash from the on and exit ramps of I-480 in our city, along with plenty of resident volunteers. We collect bags and bags of trash. However, within 1 to 2 weeks, the ramps get loaded up with the garbage all over the ground, from straws, plastic bags, bottles, food wrappings, cigarette butts, and get this, masks. Really? This is the most unhealthy risk to be throwing out the window of a vehicle. Chief Melky, can you give a report on the fines for littering and the amount of signs posted on these fines? Now, I know you didn't know the amount of signs, so if you can give us the fines on.
First degree misdemeanor, 6 months in jail, and or $1,000 fine next.
Thank you.
You're probably gonna have to repeat that for people.
I'll have you give a report when you do
Just
your
give her any report. Just doing it.
mine.
This littering needs to stop. There's no reason why there is so much trash being thrown out the vehicles, polluting our city. Granted, I know some blows in that direction, but not at this volume. Like I said at the last council meeting, I want to thank all the volunteers who have given much of their time and effort in keeping our city clean. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tansky. Next up, Mrs. Grodick.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. I certainly agree, Mr. Tansky, and I'm so glad you brought up littering. Something that we've been teaching our children probably since they've had garbage in their hands. It's hard to believe it's still an issue. And thank you to all the volunteers who have been so diligent about helping clean up our city this summer. Again. You've probably heard this many times. Well, you have heard it many times, not probably, and you will continue to hear it over the next 21 days. Just because I happen to be near the top in committee reports, I'm sure it's not even the last time you'll hear it tonight. Vote. Vote early, vote by mail, vote on November 3rd. However you choose to vote, vote. It's all safe, and we need to have our voices heard. There has been a lot of confusion, I think, because we're hearing so much about it in the news, and we've come to realize that not everybody votes as Ohio does. And I've had a few people think that the option to request a ballot is already passed. It hasn't. You still have plenty of time to request your ballot. if you choose to vote by mail. One thing you may not know, though, if you haven't already received it, the postage for our ballots in Brooklyn is 70 cents. So that's more than one stamp. So you may want to just put 2 stamps on it just to be sure. It does say it on the directions, but there are quite a few directions there. Make sure that you vote and don't let anyone deter you from that. There's one additional drop box downtown, but there are 2 drop boxes downtown. If you're not feeling comfortable with the mail, or you wait a little bit too long and want to make sure that your vote is actually counted on November 3rd, drop it off. Brooklyn is so close to major highways and so close to get downtown, and the drop boxes are open 24 hours a day. And if you are a female and already registered to vote, you have an additional incentive to help celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, giving us the right to vote. Lastly, please vote for issue 70, support our wonderful county libraries. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Groh. Next up, Mrs. Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback off Ms. Grodick. Early voting has started. While there is a presidential election on the ballot, there are also many candidates. And I challenge each and every one of you to do your research and vote all the way down the ballot instead of stopping at just the president. If you decide to vote in person, whether early or on election day, you can view your sample ballot on the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections website. Or if you choose mail-in, you can have your computer right next to you, as my husband and I did today at our kitchen table when he got home from work and before I came to council. Local races are just as important, even though they usually get less participation and definitely less news about them. Additionally, there is an issue on the ballot for Brooklyn residents. As we heard at the last council meeting, the Cuyahoga Library, issue 70, is on the ballot, and I encourage residents as well to vote yes on this issue. We have one final cleanup of the season this Saturday. We are lacking volunteers, so please register for Saturday. You can find the link on the city's Facebook page, or you can contact myself or Andy directly to let us know you're coming. I can be reached at 440-391-4832. Currently, we're meeting at Dave's Supermarket on Ridge and Weston. Is that me? But we may change locations due to the light crowd, so that's why it's so important this week you register or reach out to one of us. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan Shockey. Next up, Mr. Selhertz.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to Pastor Carl Zier for an opening prayer. Also, a thank you to Cindy Rice and Cynthia Flanagan from Kevin Calley's office in helping resolve the lighting issue under the bridge on 480. Also, thank you to Mr. Burba. I mean, he had tried effortlessly. We made many efforts at trying to get the problem resolved as well. So that's all taken care of. The final fresh produce giveaway by Bubba's Yard will be Tuesday, October 27th in the parking lot of St. Elias. It will be from 3:30 to 5:30. Another thank you to the mayor for helping or writing the Keep America Beautiful UPS tree grant that got us the grant for $5,000. As Meg mentioned, yes, we do need some help with the next cleanup this coming Saturday. So if you could spend 2 hours, we're more than happy to see you. Another additional yes is if you can, please support issue 70, the Cuyahoga County Public Library. It's been 12 years since they have gone to the ballot. Current 2.5 mil levy is one of the lowest of any public library system in the country. Cub Scout Pack 319 is doing a fundraiser, dining to donate at Applebee's on Wednesday, October 21st. Applebee's will donate 15% of your check. And one more important seasonal holiday type thing is at the next council meeting, we'll find out from the judges when they'll be going out to judge the decorations for the homes. They'll be somewhere between the next council meeting and the 31st, depending on the weather. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. Good evening. I too would like to thank Pastor Carl Sear for being here this evening. Just an update on the census. The deadline is October 31st, and as you've heard here numerous times at our meetings, this is very important. So if you have not yet completed the census, please complete it. Not only is our federal representation at stake, but here in the state of Ohio, but also federal funds. And these are funds that come to our community, either directly to our community or to residents, meaning benefits. So please complete the census if you haven't already done that. The follow-up meeting for the branding committee with the consultant Falgren and Mortine is this Monday, October 19th at 1 p.m. in the Senior Center. And I am going to be redundant and talk about the election. Please make a plan to vote and then make sure you carry it out. They are expecting long lines on election day. Part of the reason for that is not just the high turnout they expect, but also because they're going to have to be able to physically distance everyone who is in line. So, you know, I know that the officials at the Board of Elections are concerned about, you know, if it's a cold day and people see lines, that they may, you know, not want to stand outside and they may not end up voting. So I would encourage you, if you do feel comfortable early voting, to please do that. You have two options, either by mail or the early voting in person. If you are gonna vote by mail, please make sure you read the instructions very, very carefully and follow them explicitly. I pulled some figures from the Board of Elections, and through yesterday, the vote by mail applications that were processed were 317,493. However, of those, 34,611 applications were rejected. And, you know, it's either invalid ID, there was a name change, they forgot to provide the information that's on their ID, it was a wrong address where they were registered, they didn't think the signature matched closely enough to the signature that they have on file for you, people recorded their birth dates incorrectly, some people 740 people just forgot to sign the application. So please follow them to the letter. They do make an attempt to send you a letter and tell you why your application for a ballot was rejected and give you time to correct it. However, the closer you get to election, the more you're, you know, jeopardizing that your actual ballot is going to get in on time to be counted. As far as voting in person early, it is at the Board of Elections, and right now through October 16th, it's Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Beginning on the 19th through the 23rd, it's 8 to 6 p.m. Starting on October 24th, you can vote on a Saturday from 8 to 4 and Sunday 1 to 5. Please see the Board of Elections website for specific details. One other bit of confusion that people have in Northeast Ohio, the County Board of Elections here had a plan to have Board of Elections staff at 6 libraries where people could drop off either their vote by mail application or their actual ballot. These were not going to be drop boxes just left there. They were going to be manned by Board of Elections employees Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And it was going to be 3 branches of Cuyahoga County Public Libraries and 3 branches of Cleveland Public Libraries. Because there was a lot of publicity about it, there are people who think that that is happening now. And unfortunately, it's gone back and forth in the courts, so it's still in limbo. But I know at the library, we get calls every day. People think that that is still somewhere they can go to drop off their ballot. And as of right now, that is just not the case. So just make sure you double check before you would make that plan. And I too would encourage everybody to vote all the way down the ballot, not just for the more publicly recognized races that are at the top of the ballot. And the very last issue on our ballot is issue 70, which is for the library. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fucci. Next up, Mrs. Belvier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to thank Pastor Carr for all the blessings he's bestowed on our city. In looking at our past Brooklyn emails, I'd like to mention something about something that State Representative Sweeney had mentioned in one of the emails. She had mentioned that it's understandable that in the beginning of the month, it can be very difficult for many people to pay their rent. If you simply cannot handle the rent payment, the Cleveland Legal Aid Society may be of assistance to you. It's important to give them a call at 216-687-1900 or www.lasclev.org. You may also seek a local rent assistance grant at 833-377-RENT, R-E-N-T, or NEORENT help.org. With this COVID, it's been a tremendous drain on families and people, and these might be just two avenues that might be able to help with rent assistance. I also have a small school report. Sports are continuing as best they can. There is a football game this Friday. The school is keeping their fingers crossed during the season as the flu season is approaching. The next school board meeting is going to be next Tuesday, October 27th. As a district, we have 75% of our students in our hybrid in-person schedule, with 25% of our students selecting the remote-only option. And the winter athletics program will begin in the next month. With many of the people that are suffering from the effects of the COVID lockdown and the jobs and the incomes, many people are hungry, going hungry. And I've noticed that even in our own city, wonderful people are coming, like at St. Elias, as Andy had said, with the food giveaways at the Acres. And yesterday, as I was going to my own business on West 14th Street, St. Augustine's, they were giving away giant boxes of chicken, milk, butter. It was just tremendous. The cars were lined up unbelievable. And it's just wonderful that people are giving. So it goes to show you that there is a tremendous need out there. And I talked to little Sister Carita at St. Augustine's, an 80-year-old nun with a mask on, who is out there donating and giving. And she said the need is greater than ever. So if anyone ever has it in their heart and a little extra money, I know people need it. I know food banks need it. So please keep that in mind. Of course, lastly, the voting. I don't know what the word is to use to describe it, but in all my 61 years, I can only say please, please go out and vote. I don't know, this is going to be the most, I don't know, exciting election or whatever, but please go out and vote. It is very important. You know, people say, oh, my vote doesn't count. It does count. It does count. Please go out and vote. It is vital that you go out and vote. And issue 70 is a top priority for me. Not only is the library a great avenue for everything, it's entertainment. I was just thinking of those librarians there. They help children, they tutor children, they feed children, they entertain children. They do such a wonderful job. So please keep issue 70 in mind. And lastly, I have been in COVID jail for the past 7 months. So I can only tell you, since I am at home, I have heard every scam on my telephone. I've heard that my Apple computer has about $900 someone's going to charge on that. My utilities are over something. My car warranties. The only thing I could say is just hang up. I did make, I don't know if it's a mistake, but I did press the button just to see what they would say. Well, I go to a next level and you press 1 and it sounds very professional. but it is somebody that has a tremendous foreign accent with a very, very American name. And you know it's a scam right away. So my suggestion is, just hang up. But like I said, the scams are out there, just hang up. And that pretty much completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Balbier. Just a couple of things. The question that Mr. Tansky asked the police chief, the fine for littering, as was mentioned here, it's a first-degree misdemeanor, maximum of 6 months in prison, $1,000 fine. Right, so that'll answer the question for that. A couple other items to mention. I know that the census was mentioned by a couple of people, and there tends to be a lot of confusion about the census because so many things have been added to it over the years. The primary purpose of the census is to count the people for distribution of representatives, and it looks like right now that Ohio is going to lose another one. We lost, I think, 2, if I remember correctly, in 2010 because of the population shift primarily to the south and the west. And so, especially in the city of Cleveland itself, Brooklyn's pretty good at it, as was mentioned at the last meeting. But it's really important that everyone gets counted. Again, that's the primary purpose of the census. I know they do a lot of things for funding and things like that, but the whole constitutional purpose of the census is to count people for that distribution. And right now, Ohio has 16 representatives. If we do lose one, we'll be down to 15, so we will have lost 3 in the last 10 years. And so make sure that you go to that and get it counted on. That's very, very important. If I've had one phone call, I've had 10 phone calls regarding voting, and they talked about voting all the way down the ballot. And people always ask me, who do I vote for judge? Or how do I find information on judges? And they're not the easiest to find out because they're not allowed to claim political party. So I found a website that is about as nonpartisan as they come, if that even is a thing anymore. But the website is judge4 and then the word yourself.com, judgeforyourself.com. And they have 5 different organizations, some that lean conservative, some that lean more liberal, that make their recommendations on the individual candidates. And so and then there's also a profile of each of the candidates on there for all the different judges. If you wait until you go to vote on the day of the election, and you go to this website, you will make people very mad because you'll be standing in your voting booth for an hour going through this. So my recommendation is that you do your research before that. As far as vote by mail, just to give you my 2 cents worth, we've been voting by mail in Ohio for years. And as with anything else, don't wait till the last minute. If you want to vote by mail, do it now, get it done early, and mail it in. It does cost an extra 70 cents. It will get returned to you if you don't have enough postage, but if you wait until right before the election, it has to be postmarked by election day for your ballot.
The night before.
Night before the election day? Thank you, Ms. Bucci. Yep. So if you wait and you get it, the next day, it's too late. So make sure that you do put that 70 cents on there. And that's interesting, that statistic you read about the 34,000 applications being rejected. So make sure you fill the form out right, and you'll get your ballot in plenty of time. And let's see here. Also, I want to thank Meg Ryan Shockey, Mr. Sellers, Mr. Tansky for leading the charge in that litter pickup. I haven't gone to any of the organized ones, but I go on a lot of walks with my son, and he refuses to walk past any piece of paper anywhere without picking it up, which is a good thing. I'm glad he does that. So, and he asked me the other day, he's 6, why do people throw stuff out the window, or why do people throw garbage? And the answer is I don't know why they do that, but they do. And so I want to thank all of you for that work and that cleanup. That's all I have. So at this time, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Council President. The first thing I have tonight is a proclamation. Unfortunately, as we see employees retire, they don't always want to come up here and be recognized. It's not because they don't deserve it, it's just they don't really like to be in the limelight. But our recent retirement is for Lieutenant David Miller, who retired this October 2nd. And I'm just going to read this over because he had a tremendous career here, and we want to recognize all the work that he's done for the city of Brooklyn. Lieutenant Miller, a 1980 Brooklyn High School graduate, began his employment with the city of Brooklyn as a rink aide in 1978, then became an auxiliary police officer in September of 1981. Prior to working in Brooklyn, Lieutenant Miller worked for Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department as a dispatcher. He then worked as a Brooklyn police dispatcher and a pair of police officers before beginning his full-time position as a police officer on May 20th, 1989. He was promoted to sergeant in September 14th, 1997 and assigned to the patrol unit. He was then ultimately promoted to the rank of lieutenant on August 30th, 2020. Lieutenant Miller was assigned to the Police Administration in 2000. He was instrumental in bringing technology to the Brooklyn Police Department. He oversaw upgrades to the police radio system, secured a federal grant for a complete dispatch center remodel in 2005, brought in mobile data terminals to the police cars, helped implement the police department's email and internal network, and numerous software programs. Lieutenant Miller, over the course of his career, investigated numerous crimes ranging from aggravated arson to murder, earning commendations along the way. And he was key in researching, creating, and updating the department's policies and procedures. So it's with great pleasure that I want to recognize Lieutenant David Miller. And I know City Council, he didn't have an opportunity to really say anything because we didn't announce ahead of time. So if you want to say something, please do. For all of his work. You can see he has had a tremendous career here. He's implemented a lot. And so thank you to Sergeant Miller for all of you done for our city. The next thing is that Council President Van Kirk kind of reiterated, we're looking at owner's rep for GPD. The next phase of this is picking an architect. We had an RFQ out. We had 12 applicants. We narrowed that down to 4 firms that we will start interviewing tomorrow and hopefully have a selection by the end of the week. And then the last thing I want to talk about is I want to thank Andy Sellards. I know you thanked me for writing the grants, but thank you because you're the one who does all the work behind this, pointing out when these grant opportunities are available. You started Brooklyn, Keep Brooklyn Beautiful, which has allowed the city to get so much funding that we weren't getting before. So thank you for everything you do. You kind of keep, steer the boat for everything for Keep Brooklyn Beautiful. So you deserve to be recognized way more than I do. So thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate that. We'll now move on with director's reports. We begin first this evening with our Finance Director, Mr. Raguse.
I only have one item tonight, as most things were covered already. Just a reminder, our capital budget work session is on Monday, 6 p.m. at the Senior Center. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is our Service Director, Mr. Burba.
Thank you, Council President Van Kirk. Just to let the residents know, due to the holiday, we do not have special pickups this week, but we are fortunate enough to have a drop-off this Saturday down at the service garage, 9400 Memphis, from 10 to 1. So you can bring all those extra items down to the garage this Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burba. We'll now move on with the legislative portion of our agenda this evening. John decontaminates the microphone over there. First item we have is a donation from Minutemen HR of gift cards. As I mentioned in the finance meeting, we have a letter from the mayor. Minutemen HR will be donating 75 gift cards to Giant Eagle in the amount of $20 each. This donation will be used for the purpose of assisting needy families during the Thanksgiving holiday, serving as raffle prizes for senior citizen activities, and will be given to volunteers of our senior community center. So we want to thank Minutemen HR for that donation. Next is notification, as the mayor just mentioned, of a $5,000 grant from Keep America Beautiful for tree planting in Veterans Memorial Park, again to replace some of the trees that we lost due to the ash borer several years ago, also as well as the stream restoration project that's scheduled for this fall. And I'll second what the mayor said with Mr. Selhurst, so thank you very much for that and for allowing us to get that grant through Keep Brooklyn Beautiful. Next item is Resolution 2020-5 is up for a third reading and adoption, requesting the county fiscal officer to advance taxes from the proceeds of the 2020 tax levies pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 321.34. Are there any comments or questions?
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Broden.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhurst.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Del Dare.
Yes.
Next is ordinance 2020-32, up for third reading and adoption, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with West Creek Conservancy for the sale of certain real property known as a portion of 8707 Memphis Avenue.
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-35 up for third reading and adoption, amending sections 1360.21 inspection and 1360.22 right of entry of the codified ordinances of the city of Brooklyn. Additional comments or questions? Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-38 up for third reading and adoption, authorizing the mayor to grant a conservation easement to West Creek Conservancy, an Ohio nonprofit corporation, for Stickney Creek stabilization and restoration. Additional comments or questions? Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-40 up for third reading and adoption, declaring the improvement of certain real property to be a public purpose pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.40B, declaring such improvement to be exempt from real property taxation, designating public infrastructure improvements to be made that will directly benefit such property, requiring annual service payments in lieu of taxes, designating a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments, and authorizing compensation payments to the Brooklyn City School District and Polaris Career Center Joint Vocational School District. Additional comments or questions? Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
Next two ordinances are on second reading, but we hope to pass by suspension of the rules due to timing issues. Ordinance 2020-41, authorizing the mayor to grant a conservation easement to West Creek Conservancy, an Ohio nonprofit corporation, for Big Creek preservation. Any comments or questions?
Introduce by suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-42, authorizing the updated capital improvement plan for 2020. Any additional comments or questions? Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
Two new items of legislation this evening, both on first reading. The first is Resolution 2020-9, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health for health services for 2021. And Ordinance 2020-43, authorizing the mayor to enter into a consultant agreement with Glaus, Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven Incorporated, doing business as GPD Group. That is all for our agenda this evening. Do any other council members, mayor, or any directors have anything else they'd like to add?
Just a quick comment. Anybody plans on going down to the Board of Elections, last couple days was back down Euclid, it was all the way back down 30th and down Chester. So if you plan on going down and dropping any kind of ballots down there, leave early. Unless that subsides a little bit in the next couple of days. It's been hectic to move across town in that area because of the amount of traffic that's coming in, either dropping ballots or voting.
Thank you, Mr. Chansky. Anyone else?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I would like to wish Lieutenant Miller, first congratulate him on his retirement. I'd like to thank him for his service to our community and wish him a long, healthy, and happy retirement.
I will second that as well. I've spoken to Lieutenant Miller a couple times. A pretty quiet guy for the most part, but always very kind. And so I didn't even know he retired, so congratulations on that retirement there. All right. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to add? All right, move to adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beard.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed evening.